Well, hello, ladies. How are you today? And
Hey,
hello to our wonderful audience. I hope everyone out there is having a spectacular Tuesday. The weather is nice, so I hope that you went out and took a peek at some wildlife today. So, if this is your first time joining us, I am Miss Michelle. I'm the outreach coordinator here at Pasadena Humane, and I am joined by the lovely and talented Miss Loni.
hey guys, ready to watercolor?
So, and we also have Miss Lauren. She is a plethora of knowledge when it comes to wildlife.
Hi.
So we always love talking with her. Are you guys excited for what we've got going on today?
So excited.
Yeah, I really like these two animals, so I'm jazzed.
Yeah. So, you guys, we will be talking about river otters and the bald eagle. Before we get started, though, I want to make sure that everyone has their supplies ready, and I'm going to go through some webinar reminders super quick. So, and this is just if you are joining us for the first time, or you might need that little bit of a reminder. So this is an audio visual presentation. You guys are muted. We can't see your cameras, even though you can see and hear us. With that in mind, try not to raise your hand because we won't be able to hear anything you ask us. But instead use the question box on the right hand side of your screen and I will be able to see those. Next week, we're going to be reading about Jake the growling dog. So if you were with us last week, we heard a little bit about his personality and what makes him different. And this week, he's going to be going to doggy daycare. So we'll hear about that experience as well and speak with Samantha Shannon, the author herself, and find out my burning question. Is Jake a real dog? Next month, we're going to continue our wildlife and watercolor regional series, and we're going to talk about the prairie dog and the roadrunner. So we always encourage you guys to share your artwork with us because we love to see the work that you produce. So you can use this link right here. I will go ahead and drop that in the chat box so everybody has it for easier use. And if for any reason you miss a step or you want to go back and look at it, you've got to get up and leave. This webinar is recorded. You will get a copy of it tomorrow afternoon to watch as many times as you want to. So without further ado, I'm going to give it to Miss Loni and Miss Lauren.
Hey everyone, welcome. I'm really excited to have you guys on. Hey Miss Lauren, how you doing?
Hi, good.
Good. So before we get started, guys, I'm just going to go over all of our supplies. Just a reminder, I have this really awesome Amazon set of watercolors that's really great. You can take it anywhere. It's really versatile. I always, as you can see, end up running out of the black. The black is like desperately almost gone because we use it so much when we're doing our shades and our colors. Then I have cardstock. I have 2 here for both of the paintings, and I usually split a paper in half just so that we can have enough time to actually fill the page up with what we're working on. So that's usually what works for me. And then this year, we're actually pre-cutting our templates, so they're here and ready to go. We're actually going to outline the templates first, and then we're going to start painting. Then I have my really cool jazzy watercolor pens, and they actually came with this set. So I highly recommend these because they're really good for fine detail work, or if you just want to paint like large scale, just bigger brush across, then this is definitely a great set to start off with. Then I always have like a little paper napkin or a paper just to help drip and clean up all the excess paint. And then lastly, I always have like a pen to do any fine detail work or outline work. So let's get started. So first off, we're actually going to outline the otter. And this time actually I did like add his face and stuff. So I believe you guys should be having his face on there. If not, no worries. We definitely will just go ahead and add that anyways with the pencil. And I will do this in darker line to make sure that you guys can see this. And like I always tell you guys, the great part about working with pencil and watercolor is you can always erase everything after, which is really great. So we are outlining our little otter guy.
It's another important supplies is a good eraser.
Yes, you're right. Look, fail. But I live on the edge, Lauren, you
Wow,
know?
dangerous.
Yeah, I know I take risks. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take my little outline and I'm gonna follow his little face here. So I will go ahead and do that quickly. And I'm freehanding it, you guys. So I want you guys to practice freehanding because even if you make a mistake, it's okay. It's just art, which I love that about art. And now that Miss Lauren said I don't have a pencil, I think it's jinxed me to mess up my nose. No, I'm kidding. So it's all good. Even if I make a mess, it's not a big deal. And then he's got like a little tum here. And I will go ahead and show you guys once I'm done with it where all the lines are. But I think in the stencil, you can kind of see where everything is. So I can kind of show you a close up of this dude. So I went ahead and just drew this part. And then I just cut that part off because that's where his little arm kind of is under. And that's about it. And then I did his cute little face. I would love to see you guys when yours are done because I want to see all your cute faces. So this is my version. As you can see, it's not as great because I don't have an eraser.
So cute.
So the
They're
next
like
one,
little water puppies.
I know, little water puppies. I'm excited to talk about the water puppies. So the next one is actually an eagle. And this is actually, if you were to Google this design that I actually took from, it's actually called a thunderbird. And I know that in certain sort of the way it's defined is it doesn't necessarily always say it's an eagle, but when I did look it up, I liked this design because I wanted us to do something that was more native in style and talk about sort of what the thunderbird and the eagle represent, because of a lot of the animals that we talk about usually, there are always these really cool descriptions and stories and like folklore, and a lot of animals represent a lot of things I guess people want to relate to, right, Lauren?
Yep, that's right.
And for whatever reason, right, Lauren, certain animals kind of convey like a feeling that people feel about them.
Yeah, especially with those birds of prey, like you're saying with the thunderbird, it's often talked about as kind of like the biggest bird that's much bigger than eagles and other, turkey vultures and things like that, and birds of prey and hawks. But since it doesn't actually exist, we'll talk a little bit about eagles.
I love that. So see, friends, I want to show you kind of what I did. So this is and I love thunderbirds. I actually would love this in jewelry. So it's just such a beautiful design. So I really am excited to see some of my friends. If you guys share this with us, absolutely would love it. So I went ahead and I did my little thunderbird. And don't worry if your beak is a little funky. It's very thick here, but that's because we're going to outline everything. And I'm going to keep this really free and loose. So I'm going to show you the example of the after that I worked on so you kind of can see where we're going with it, so that when you guys kind of can visualize. I'm a visual artist. I need like descriptions. So I'm going to go ahead and just do the rays on his head. So they're just going to be lines. And then on the bottom, I'm going to do lines as well. And then we're going to do just a basic outline here. And don't fret, you guys, if it isn't perfect. If you don't have this perfectly thin, brush, no worries. Like I said, you could use a Sharpie or you could use this pen if you need to. So I'm really excited to see what you guys can do with that. So I'm going to go ahead and put him away for a minute. And we're going to talk about our little friend here.
Yay!
So, yay, I love him. So Lauren, what's up? What's up with otters?
What's up with otters? What's not up with otters? Otters are so cool. So, this guy is a river otter, which is different than sea otters. And I think a lot of times people think of otters and they think of the cute little ones, all fluffy, floating in the ocean, holding hands while they sleep. No, not this guy. Not the river otters. They're a bit ferocious.
Okay. Just a bit.
And they have very sharp teeth. So do sea otters, but river otters, they eat lots of little critters found in the rivers in North America, and they're found in Canada and the northern part of the United States. And they eat, you know, all kinds of things in the water, all kinds of aquatic life, fish, crayfish, crabs, frogs. They'll eat birds' eggs and, you know, even
Wow.
reptiles and sometimes turtles. So they'll pretty much get whatever they can get their hands on. But they're really social and playful. So you can see he's like kind of in a little playful mood in that, in your drawing that you have there. And another thing I wanted to point out about that, sort of his body shape is it's kind of like an S shape, right? So they're really well adapted to life underwater, and their bodies are like little torpedoes that shoot super fast underwater, and they go in and out of like their dens and their burrows, which have underwater openings. And they have whiskers that can sense the change in the water, so they know where the fish are. And they also can, another cool adaptation they have is that they can close their ear holes and their nose holes while they're swimming underwater so that they don't get water up their nose. Because I hate it when that happens. Don't you hate that when you jump in the water?
Oh,
it's the worst.
Yeah. I think one time I snorkeled in Hawaii and a big wave went over me while I was snorkeling and I just took in a lot of water. It's just such a yucky feeling when you're just not, you know, expecting it, you know?
How cool would it be if you could just close your nose holes and your ear holes so you didn't have to get water in it?
That's a total superpower. I mean, there's movies, right? There's Marvel characters created after these awesome animals, pretty much. Yeah. So Lauren, why are they very social? Because you're saying that they're very aggressive in the water, right? So do they have like big families? Like how do they sort of work together?
Yeah, they do. They can sometimes be alone, but often they're found in family groups. They'll breed in the late winter and early spring, and they give birth to 1 to 3 pups usually. And their little pups are they're blind and they're helpless when they're born, and they don't know how to swim for a couple months. And so they stay with mom for a while, and generally they'll live in their small little family groups like that. And they usually live till they're about 8 or 9 years old, but in captivity they've been known to live, you know, into their 20s. So it's pretty cool.
Do you know what their lifespan, like, you know how in dog years, what is it, 7 years, right? Is it sort of the same that way? I know that's a really
I guess
random.
it would be kind of the same. I mean, it's pretty normal for dogs to live between 10 and 20 years old, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of why I was wondering. I mean, that's kind of a very random question. I know that at least in our area, we don't have these animals. So I know we're kind of testing each other by kind of going outside of our region to kind of learn more about all the other cool animals that are, you know, around us, but not necessarily super local. So how close would these animals be to us? Like, where are they right now?
Right this very second.
Like
I'm
right
not
now.
sure. They have a big range. They're pretty much like most wildlife, they go wherever there's food. So like I was saying earlier, you know, the rivers in Canada and a lot of rivers in the United States, except for the Southwest, which is obviously where we're located. But they're found in Mexico and the Rio Grande and the Colorado River Delta area. They pretty much thrive in any water habitat, as long as there's food. So ponds, marshes, lakes, rivers, cold water, warm water, high elevation, as long as there's food. Relatable.
You were talking about though that they sort of burrow, right, in underwater in these cool little, like, is it just burrowing? Like, do they build their own spaces?
They have dens where they, you know, give birth and raise their babies, and the entrance is underwater, so that helps sort of protect it from predators.
Got it. That's so cool.
Yeah. And their predators are usually bobcats, alligators, coyotes, raptors, and humans. You know, they were hunted for their furs for a long time. because that's another one of their superpower adaptations, is they have this super thick fur, and that's what keeps them warm when they're even in cold waters. It's kind of like wearing a wetsuit. But yeah, so they were hunted for their fur for a long time, and then luckily there's been some legislation that's happened in the past couple of decades that have stopped that, and so they're thriving.
Again, because I'm so interested in their dens. Is it like beavers where they build them? Do you know?
No, oftentimes they just occupy dens that are already there, made by other animals, but they'll
Wow.
just like modify it.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, not super familiar with river otter dens, so definitely recommend doing your own research on that one, kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just really cool when we start talking about these really random animals that we don't get at the shelter, and just kind of teaching people about other animals that kind of are in our world, which I really like that we've been kind of spreading out more. How do they communicate, Lauren?
I came in. I like to imagine what we would do with a little. So cute.
So cute. I was asking Lauren, how do they communicate?
Are you frozen or am I frozen?
I think you're frozen, but I'm kind of waiting to see if you get back. Can you hear me?
Oh. Yeah. You're asking me about communication?
Yeah.
So that's another really cool thing about river otters as well. They communicate with whistles and yelps and growls and screams, and they also use body language. In the giant river otters of South America, in like the Amazon and stuff, they sort of, when they're greeting each other, they telescope their head above the water and show off their chest, and their chests have different color patterns on them, kind of like a name tag. And that's how they tell each other, hi, and this is me. And so that's one of the cool ways that they communicate, in addition to all of the different noises that they make.
Love it. I'm currently working on sort of the environment here, and I was just going to create some river rocks on the bottom of the water. And then did you say that they eat sort of like the water, like different plants that are in the water as well?
Yeah, they do sometimes. They'll mostly eat, aquatic wildlife like fish and crayfish and crabs and stuff. But they've been known to eat aquatic plants as well.
That is so cool. Would you say that, I mean, how many pups do they usually have throughout their life? Do you know?
That I do not know. But
Do they,
if you imagine they have 1 to 3 pups a year and they live till they're like 9, I'll let you guys do the math. They'll
wow,
start reproducing in their second year, I believe. But yeah.
that's really cool. So really quickly, you guys, I'm just kind of telling you where I'm going in the direction. I'm going to start adding some plant life here for the background. And I will go back to him and actually outline his face and everything. A lot of watercoloring is timing, making sure that you can kind of go back and do multiple layers. Remember that the more that you add to the actual painting, the more intense it'll become. And since we're always working on 2 paintings, I kind of have to rush through some of it. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick some greens here. I actually really like that green. And I'm going to add that to and make some really cool kind of sea plants and things as well. So yeah. Yeah. So Lauren, what in terms of like their water life, are they always in water, or are they kind of floating around outside as well? Like, do they sit out? Do they sun?
They sunbathe for sure. Yeah. They do spend a lot of their time in water. So what do you remember what we call animals that spend their time in water and on land?
My goodness. I
They're
don't.
They're amphibious.
Oh, amphibious. Oh, that's true. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So they're not amphibians like frogs, but they're amphibious. So they have amphibious tendencies. They spend a lot of time in the water, live a lot of their life in the water. But they do hang out on land too.
That's cool. I like that they're so kind of able to do both. That's really neat.
Yeah, they're really well adapted. That's why I love learning about them, because they're such a great example of how evolution is, created a way for these animals to be perfectly adapted to their specific environments. And with these guys, it's, the shape of their body, it's that tail, which acts like a rudder in the water, which is like, you guys know how rudders steer ships. It's like that for these guys, and how thick their fur is, and those really cool whiskers that can sense movement in the water, and all different kinds of things. It's just so perfectly adapted to their environment.
I love it. Okay, so here it is, you guys. It's a little wet right now, so I don't know if you can. The kind of lighting right now is really bright, so I'm gonna let it dry for a minute, and we're gonna get back to it. But the next up is our awesome eagle thunderbird vibe. So before I get started, I really like the yellow background I did on my first sample, so I'm gonna go ahead and do sort of like a cool horizon. We've done a lot of horizons in the past, so I'm going to go ahead and just show you really quickly how that works. It's really easy, and I think it's just more about managing the colors. So I'm going to go ahead and start really light. So I'm probably going to pick one of the, actually no, I'm going to pick this kind of yellow because it vibes really well with this orange. We'll kind of give it a cool, just kind of a good transition from the yellow to the orange. So here we go. And I'm going to get really kind of just freehand, easy, quickly. I'm not really going to add a lot of paint per se. I'm just going to kind of go back and forth, and that kind of gives it a really cool sunset kind of look, which we've done before because we've worked with a lot of desert animals because we're in a desert, right, Lauren?
That's right.
So
we live in a desert.
Totally. So a lot of our stuff is desert themed. And as you can see, I just went ahead and I'm just adding orange all up in the mix here and just kind of letting it go wherever it wants to go. And I know that Lauren just took another watercolor class over the weekend, which is really cool. And she was talking about all the different methods that there is to kind of work with watercolors, right?
Yeah, I learned a lot, and it was a lot about how to, pull color using water, and how to do different sort of like painting methods. Like you can get your paper wet first and then paint on top of it, and that creates a different effect versus painting just on top of a dry paper. So it's really, watercolor is so cool because you can experiment with it in so many different ways, and it does so many cool different things based on how much water you use, and then like mixing of the colors. And I don't know, I think it's really fun. I'm gonna do it with you guys next time, I think.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I really can't. I would love to see what you come up with in terms of the different choice. I'd love to see you make different color choices too than me. I think because I make these, then I kind of stay in the choice, but I really want to see that. Okay, guys, so I just worked on just a basic outline. You can add more and more sort of details, and you can get darker and darker as we go. But we're going to go ahead and I'm probably going to dark line him in a black with black watercolor. You can go ahead and please feel free to do however you'd like if you don't have a thin one and you want to use a marker. And then we're just going to do a basic outline. You guys can kind of follow along. Another thing is if it's really hard for you to work on the lines for his head in terms of just sort of the rays, I would say, just let me show you really quickly. This is just kind of a map to show you where you want your lines to go. So if you just do that, then it'll just kind of show you and give you a better idea if that's what you need. As always, we kind of do a harder thing with an easier thing. So this is kind of considered something for the younger group. And then this is, a little more detail oriented. So anyways, so back to eagles. So Lauren, what do eagles represent a lot of times for us, I guess as humans?
Well, I mean, you could just start off with how eagles are our national bird, which is
Yes.
pretty special. And I always like to remind people that I believe it was Benjamin Franklin who wanted our national bird to be the turkey. But
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
the eagle won out.
I mean, it's so regal.
Yeah, I think turkeys are pretty cool though.
You know what? Turkeys are gorgeous. When you see their plumage and just how beautiful those animals are, it's amazing. They're
They're
absolutely
like brown peacocks.
absolutely. I don't think people give turkeys enough credit, and other than Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But eagles, you know, they are birds of prey. They're related to hawks and they're related to vultures too though. So they can be scavengers and not as, you know, majestic and you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we think of them as being these fierce predators, but when I lived in Alaska, we saw all the eagles at the dump and we saw them all at the trash cans behind McDonald's. So
Yeah. That's really
so
interesting.
they're opportunistic just like most wildlife, you know, they're gonna get whatever's easiest to get.
Totally. And I really love about that, Lauren, is what we always talk about is people will like look at all these wildlife animals, vultures and opossums and all these animals is just like gross and dirty, but they're actually doing us a huge service, right?
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, I love that you always bring that up too, because you know, our streets would be so much dirtier if we had all the trash and dead animals and stuff, you know, that our scavenger friends didn't pick up. So they're kind of they're an essential part of the food chain in that they are hunters. They do go and catch fish and stuff too, but they also will, you know, they'll chew on a dead whale carcass that's washed up just as easy, you know?
Yeah, that's so neat. I actually really have such a great appreciation now, especially now that I work at our awesome job, that I've learned so much about how all of the animals, how we all kind of fit together. And I think it's
Absolutely.
important to stress that a lot. So
Yeah.
really quickly, let me just show you guys where I'm at. So I'm just outlining him. And don't worry if your lines aren't absolutely perfect, you guys can do this again and again. I'm actually going to thicken the lines in a minute, and then I'm going to add some red inside of him. So anyway, so Lauren, how big do eagles get?
Eagles can have, oh no, what was it? What did we say last time? They're like
The
a
wingspan?
6 or 7 foot wingspan.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's big. They're big boys and girls. And you know what's actually even more impressive in my humble opinion is their nest size. They build some of the biggest nests out of all birds, usually 5 or 6 feet wide. So big like a kiddie pool and 2 to 4 feet deep, and they're kind of cone shaped. So they find these big trees to have them in, and they're just these massive nests, and both the males and the females bring material to help build the nest, but the female does do most of the stick placement. She chooses where all the sticks go, and she weaves them together and fills the cracks with softer materials like grasses and mosses, and then the inside of the nest is lined with really soft lichen or other sort of softer materials, and they pluck out their own downy feathers to keep it soft too before they lay their eggs. They do sometimes have ground nests if they're living in an area where there's not a bunch of tall trees. But and then when they do have ground nests, they use things like kelp and driftwood and stuff when they're by the coasts. But they'll spend like 3 months building these nests, and they'll reuse them years after years. So it's very important that they have a nice, good nest.
You know what? You make such a cool point because I get these birds that have I bought this cool like thrift store lantern, and I have it perched up on my deck. And I want to say every spring, the birds always come and sit. It's like a gypsy lantern with a hole in it,
Mm-hmm.
and they make their nest there. And every year they use the same space.
When you got a good spot, you got a good spot.
Right? That's so funny. It's so human-like too, right? It's like if you ever get a good parking spot, or you know the best spot for somewhere, you're like, I got
if you got a great deal on a cool apartment in a good location, you're not giving that up.
That is so true. So check this out, you guys. So I'm just doing really straight lines. I actually really love working in black and white. It's like my obsession, actually. I prefer black and white over color a lot of times. So I'm so curious to see how heavy those those nests must get, right?
I
Jeez.
know. I don't know. I don't know if they've been weighed. I'm sure they have been weighed, but I do not have that information. What I can tell you is that they usually have 1 to 3 eggs, and they'll usually just have one brood, and they incubate in that nest for a little over a month, and then a couple months later, the babies, after they hatch, they'll start jumping out of their nests and learning to fly. So it's pretty cool. The conservation success of eagles is really quite a great story too. Their numbers have all increased between 1966, way before probably most people watching were born, and up to 2015, according to the North American Breeding Bird Survey. They estimate that the global breeding population is at 250,000 bald eagles, which is a great number.
That's so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a really fun part, you guys. I'm just going to add zigzags and all kinds of freestyle inside because he kind of has like a very boxy geometric vibe. I encourage you guys to add cool squares and squigglies inside of him. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. But I know that Michelle has some really awesome trivia and questions and polls in regards to, I think, the otter that we were talking about.
Yeah, so Lauren, one question that we did get, and I'm sure it's very subjective, but why are otters so cute?
You know what? That is a really great question. I think cuteness is also in the eye of the beholder, as beauty is. But yeah, I think it's those the little noses and the cheeks and the face, and they're cute. If you hear them though, they're very screechy. They're not as cute. If you look up YouTube videos, it'll hurt your ears.
So, all right, I'm gonna put our first poll question up on the screen. So those of you that are with us, take a look at your screens and answer the question to the best of your knowledge. True or false? River otters swim on their backs. Oh, this is definitely a mixed bag. It's very, very close.
I feel like I've seen them do that.
You've seen river otters swim on their backs?
I don't know. I think I have.
You think you have. All right, and we're closing in 3, 2, and 1. So it was very tight. 55% said this is true and 45% said it's false. So it is actually false.
Darn.
Yeah, the sea otters swim on their backs and river otters swim on their front so they can see down into where they are swimming.
Michelle, you're always tricking us.
I try.
I know.
And I know Lauren talked a little bit about otters swimming. So what is the distinct feature of the river otter's tail? Is it long and pointy or is it short and flat?
I think you guys have the answers there on your page, on your drawing.
Oh, goodness. Either way.
Oh, Lauren, you gave it away. The vote is,
No, everyone's smart. I didn't give it away.
so yes, the poll is closing. For those of you who said that the river otter's tail is long and pointed, you are absolutely correct.
Sweet.
And one last question about the otters. Which one is bigger, the sea otter or the river otter?
And this is the North American river otter, correct?
Okay. Love it.
Oh, it's almost an even split. All right, and I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, and 1. So it is actually the sea otter is 2 to 3 times larger than the river otter. And one of the biggest reasons is because it has more room to grow. So just if you think about fish, they grow to the size of their fish bowl.
It's in the ocean.
I love it.
I do want to say, though, there are giant South American river otters that are humongous.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's always large versions of all of these animals, which is so cool. And you're right. I guess they do grow to the space a lot, most of them. So what do you think, Lauren? You like this one?
I do like it a lot.
I do too. I actually really like what I did to his little face and everything. So later, you guys, you can go ahead and erase the sort of the pencil mark parts, and you can keep adding more color to this one. We're actually going to go back to our river otter, and we're going to add a few details that I couldn't because his face was wet, and also for my friends who can't do maybe like the detail work if they don't have a really thin watercolor brush. So I was just going to say to go ahead and grab, maybe if you have a thin Sharpie or just a fine tip black pen, you can use any kind of pen, it's not a big deal. And you can go ahead and just sort of start doing the line work. If you visit your template that we had, it'll show you exactly where where the face part goes. And then the final part, I was waiting for it to dry, was his little ear. So he has a tiny little ear right here. And I guess, is that really, I mean, do they hear really well, Lauren? I mean, it's a pretty small ear, right?
They have little ears, but yeah, I mean, they use them just like our ears. But it's hard to hear underwater. But
Yeah.
because they communicate, but I was saying they communicate so much with their voices, and they have all those different sounds. So it is important that they are able to hear.
Absolutely. Hey, Michelle, do you like this? I know you have some really cool eagle information as well for our kids today.
Yes, I do like it. And I see that it looks like he's got a little bit of hair on top of his head.
Does a little flash of hair there.
So, and that actually brings me to our first poll question. Are bald eagles really bald? Oh, I'm curious to see what everyone says.
Yeah, me too.
I will say the Thunderbirds, since we were going to talk a little bit about that, it's believed that lightning would flash from its beak, and that the beating of its wings represented the rolling of thunder. And it also sometimes is portrayed with an extra head. So if you want to draw 2 heads on your eagle, you can have a 2-headed Thunderbird.
I love that. You could totally do that.
So I've gone ahead and closed the poll, and the majority of the answers is no. So no, bald eagles really are not bald. Their name actually comes from an old English word, balde, meaning white.
Wow.
Knowledge bombs.
We're getting a little grammar lesson as well.
Love it.
All right, and I know you guys were talking about how big, the bald eagles are, and in hearing and what have you, but I'm curious about sight. So are bald eagles monocular or binocular? So do they see with one eye or do they see with two eyes? So, and this is actually a really cool fact that that I learned when looking into the bald eagle. All right, and I'm closing the poll in 3, 2, and 1. So everyone that answered that question is correct. Okay. The bald eagles are both monocular and binocular, and they use their eyes depending on what they are looking at. They
So
do
tricky.
have 2 focal points in their eyes called a fovea, and one looks forward and the other looks at a 45-degree angle.
Wow.
So,
What makes them such good hunters?
Yes, well, and so hunting, they can see something the size of a rabbit up to 3 miles away.
Wow, that's so cool.
That's another superpower for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and many, superheroes have the ability to fly. So how fast can an eagle fly? Is it 30 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, or 100 miles an hour? Ooh, this is interesting. It's a little bit all over the place. I think one of the greatest things about this is I get to watch the polls change ever so rapidly. All right, and the poll is closing in 3, 2, and 1. I think most people will be very surprised to find out that a bald eagle can fly at 30 miles per hour. However, if it is hunting its prey, like that rabbit it can see 3 miles away, it can dive at 100 miles per hour.
That's amazing.
Like, that's just crazy.
Absolutely. It's amazing.
Fall out of the sky that fast and with intent.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other audience questions?
No, well, someone was asking about, Kraken otters and if they exist, because the ocean is pretty big. It could happen somewhere along the lines. I actually do have a question for Loni, though. Okay, so what is your opinion on embossing tools when drawing?
I don't have a problem with them. I think if they enhance your piece and you feel like they would benefit you in your approach. I'm a mixed media artist, so I actually use a lot of various different tools, sort of not in a traditional sense. So I apply different methods to kind of gain different results. So I think that that's kind of the joyful part of being an artist is being able to utilize things differently to create different effects. And a lot of times when you're an artist, you find a really cool way of doing something and it's kind of your special thing. And a lot of people can't like figure it out. So it's kind of like a secret. It's like your secret magic. Since we're talking about magical powers, it's like your magical power. So I definitely encourage you guys to use different sorts of mediums and things to help you interpret your artistic expression. And if you do use it and it looks awesome and you want to share it, please share it with us. We love seeing all of your pieces of work that are inspired by all of our programming. It inspires us and it helps all of us create really awesome content for you guys. So yes, the answer is yes, do it.
All right, and Lauren, I have one more question for you.
Uh-oh.
It's a tough one, and I don't know the answer to it. Who named the bald eagle?
Oh,
Who named it?
Yeah.
Let me Google it really. No, just kidding. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure. I would have to look that up.
yeah. The great thing about what we're doing right now is I feel like we're touching on a lot of, just FYI guys, we're touching on a lot of different animals that Lauren is so great at what she does, and she knows so much about a lot of the animals that we are working locally. But what I like about this is it really gives us time to kind of figure it out and figure it out with you. So I don't know, in the next few
A little bit about a lot.
Exactly. And I think that's why we want to expand our knowledge, and that's why we want you guys on, so that it kind of makes you guys inquire about things that we want to know about too. So yeah, I love it.
All right. And then one last question that just popped on, and it's for all of us. What is your favorite animal?
Oh,
I can go.
go, babe.
Coyote.
Oh, I love coyotes. I'm starting to love coyotes because of you. I think we have a coyote workshop coming up, guys. So if you guys want to know more about coyotes, that's coming up very soon.
And fox bats. I love those fruit fox bats. They're so cute.
Okay, so you have two. I think right now I love cats. I'm in cat mode again. So what about you? What about you, Michelle?
My absolute favorite is the three-toed sloth.
Not the two-toed?
Not the two-toed sloth, but I like the three-toed sloth. They have these little like masks over their eyes. They do hang upside down, and so their fur actually grows towards the spine instead of away from the spine. So when it is hanging upside down from the trees and it starts to rain, the water can just drip off its back.
That's so cool. That's really neat. All right. Well, I love it. Well, thanks, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed all of the art, and we hope to see your stuff, right?
Yes, I dropped the link in the chat box for everybody to share your artwork, and you know, we'd love to see what it is that you guys have been working on.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, ladies, again, and it was good seeing you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
All right. Bye, ladies. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you next month.